Okay, so we're going to have a look at another one of the Earthship principles here. We've previously covered 1 to 5, thermal, solar, heating and cooling, solar and wind electricity, contained sewage treatment, building with natural and recycled materials, water harvesting and food production. So we're going to dive in on food production now. And it's probably important to say that I've got very black thumbs. I'm not a gardener, but I've managed to get a few kind of sturdy looking basil plants together with the kids. I've planted some perennial peanut for ground cover. The aloe vera, which is rampant on the balcony, probably doesn't count because that seems to survive anything I do to it. But my point is that if you throw enough mud against the wall, it sticks, right? So I've had a bit of practice at Daruma Eco Farm over the last year. So I've been there digging the canals for the Chinampus. Some corn that we planted in a field there. I've been making IMO and compost tea, learning and teaching Dr. Elaine Ingham's work on soil microbiology. So there are a few things coming together there that might make my thumbs a little bit greener over time. So, okay, some things I thought about to consider here when you're thinking about food production in the greenhouse or in the exterior botanical cells in an earthship, and those would be water, nutrients, light, soil microbiology and safety, food producing plants, and then things that might not be in the Earthship manual, but things like perishables, things that are expensive or valuable, or unobtainium, which is things that you just might not be able to get at your local market or in your local area. So things like herbs, in the UK and even in Taiwan, actually, things like basil and cilantro seem to be very expensive for quite a small bag or a small amount, a handful, and they go really quickly. So really useful to have herbs and so on laying around that you can just pluck straight from the plant. Expensive and valuable items obviously could save money if you're growing those at home. And if you just can't get it, unobtainium, then of course makes sense to grow those if you want them. So thinking about water first on the list, we've already seen there's lots and lots of water in an earthship, a really plentiful supply. Plants love the grey water that comes from showers, hand basins, sinks, especially the kitchen sink, although that can be messier to filter or to manage. And you can use that grey water in the planter along the full length of your home to grow pretty much whatever you like within the space available. The remaining grey water from the planter inside here, at the end, we've already discussed in grey water and black water treatment. That's captured, filtered, and then pushed through the water organising module again to flush the toilets. So things like washing machines and showers, baths, dishwashers, they can output a lot of water, a large volume of water, so large planters or outside planters are recommended for those usually. Hand basins and the kitchen sink are good candidates for your inside planters. So, in terms of nutrients for food production, there's a lot of stuff that comes off our bodies, oils, dead hair, skin, and those are some of the things that will be nutrients for some of the microorganisms in your planter and then your plants. So depending on your choice of soap, if you're running your washing machine or dishwasher into a planter, there might be different levels and types of nutrients available for your plants. Certainly some nitrogen and phosphorus might be in the mix to a greater or lesser degree. I've even seen some stuff on possibly the Permies forum about making your old style detergents with higher phosphorus amounts. Probably used to cause quite a lot of problems in our waterways and rivers, but if you're putting it direct into a planter, then the plants love the phosphorus obviously, so higher phosphorus levels aren't a problem if you're dropping them into planters straight for plants. Compost and compost tea would, yeah, of course, that would be something great that would be added, and we'll come on to that shortly. So light in some designs, part of the roof is also glazed to allow more light in for plants, where I've got a solid deck frame there. and also to harvest more heat in the day if you're trying to soak that heat into the thermal mass. Regular household glazing usually filters out UV, so it doesn't damage your upholstery and furnishings and curtains and anything else, maybe even your worktop if your kitchen is close enough, that can get damaged and fade with ultraviolet hitting it. If you want maximum plant growth, greenhouse glass, greenhouse plastic can be used. Now, I'm in a subtropical tropical climate here in Taiwan, so I might want more shading. I might not want all the light getting in, so I've considered actually having that that planter that would usually be inside here in an Earthship, just in the outside area, outside the house. So possibly in my ultimate design, the interior botanical cell here will be alongside the exterior botanical cell. So just some considerations based on the region that you live in. Now, moving on to soil microbiology, I've dropped some links in the references at the end of this presentation. There's some research out there that shows no significant difference in contamination levels was observed between crops irrigated with tap water, untreated grey water, and treated grey water. So referencing the link at the end of the presentation for that. And having already mentioned compost and compost tea earlier, it's important to note that compost and compost tea inoculate the soil with a lot of beneficial microorganisms, a great diversity and a great number. And it's not just the case that these things are good for the soil and good for your plants, but they also outcompete pathogens or microorganisms that we might not consider to be so good for us. So there's research in Dr. Elaine Ingham's presentation about treating soil that was high in E. coli with compost tea. You can see that if you look at the link in the references at the end again. But yeah, it's not just that compost tea is good for the plants themselves, it's also good for suppressing or outcompeting pathogens and stuff that we consider harmful to humans. So, food producing plants. Now, black thumbs here. I've taken advice on this. So some of this comes from the Earthship manual, as we can see here, and some of it I've asked a colleague who works at Daruma Eco Farm in Thailand. So in the Earthship manual, they recommend starting with hardy plants such as grapes, aloe. Even I can't kill aloe. If I can't kill aloe, you're probably safe planting aloe. Grapes, aloe and geraniums, and then things that are easy to start like tomatoes, zucchini, lettuce and peppers. Now, speaking to the person that looks after the Chinampus and the gardens a lot over in Daruma at the Eco Farm, cherry tomatoes can be a bit more difficult to get going, but maybe if you've got some stuff growing there already, and the microbiology is good in the soil, maybe those will grow. Personal choices and thoughts, again, I've mentioned perishables and expensive or valuable items or things that you just can't get unobtainium. So picture of papayas there because I really like papayas, one of my favourites. And this list came from Miss Galandez, who's the person who looks after a lot of the gardens at Daruma. So based on a tropical, subtropical kind of climate, and possibly even indoors in a greenhouse, you'd have mung beans and long beans and green beans and winged beans and all kinds of bell peppers that could be grown. Calamansi is a variety of lemon, the long variety of chilies, tomatoes again mentioned here, watermelons. You could even train those. I've seen and heard of those being trained along a balcony so that you end up with lots of big watermelons in a small space for gardening. Courgettes and brassicas like cauliflower and cabbage and so on. Arugula spinach, chard, mizuna, daikon radishes, purple mustard and garlic chive. So thank you to Miss Galandez in Thailand at Daruma for those suggestions. And moving on to the outdoor planters. So if I was in a tropical region, I might have what would usually be the interior planter in the exterior area. And I'd have no worries about growing most food crops in that. Talking about the Blackwater botanical cell for water from the toilets, it goes through through a septic system and then overflows into the exterior botanical cell. Fruit trees, things that don't touch that water, where the fruit or the crop, the yield, doesn't touch that black water, would be ideal. So you could have lots of fruit trees. I've got pictures of guava and papaya and mangoes down here. The exterior cells will be taking a larger volume of water anyway from washing machines and dishwashers and showers and baths usually, so trees are quite good at sucking that up, as are some vining crops I've read about as well, so you could go for grapes and so on there as well. In the Earthship Manual Volume 1, they do recommend or suggest root crops in your interior botanical cell. I've read something on greywateraction.org that doesn't recommend it, so again the references are below for your own investigations into that. But personally, I love tropical fruit. It's insanely good. It's really good in Thailand. In Thailand it's similar. So in my exterior botanical cells I'd probably have bananas and guava and mango. Papaya, definitely. Lychees, really good in the tropics. Wax or rose apples, really keen on those, and so are the kids. So I'm pretty mad about avocados as well, so if I can get any avocados going I'd be all over that. In the UK some of those might work in the greenhouse, but if not, then we get good pears and apples and other types of vegetables in the UK, so there's lots of latitude to choose what you want to grow. Personally, I think you can't beat a good old-fashioned carrot sometimes, especially if it doesn't come from a supermarket, so I'd prefer munching on a raw carrot a lot of the time to any apple that I'd probably pick up in a supermarket. So that's about it for food production. You can see the other 5 principles in this playlist or in the presentation if you're viewing this on SlideShare or if you're viewing it on the Interconnected website. You can grab it in lots of different places, and by all means like the video down below, subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the videos. Thanks.